revolutions break things and destroy things. Revolution has a destructive side to it, but it also has a creative side to it. It is the destruction of the old order and the creation of a new order. And at the end of his life, Malcolm X was a revolutionary. Not just a spokesman, not just a minister. To be a minister is a good thing, to be a spokesman is a good thing, but that's not the same thing as a revolutionary. A revolutionary organizes revolutionary organizations to carry out the task of making revolution. And we need a revolution. Amen. I was born in 1953. I was born a year before the Brown decision. I was born into apartheid. And in 1953, black people were on the bottom, and in 2018, black people are still on the bottom. What does that tell me? That tells me that we cannot get freedom, justice, and equality under the established social order as it currently exists. And that we need a revolution to establish a new and just social order. How many more generations of black people must experience second-class citizenship in this country? How many more generations of black people must live under racial terror in this country? How many more generations of black people must experience racial discrimination in this country? How many more generations of black people must live under the oppression of racial inequality? What does this tell us when we live a lifetime, and at the end of our lifetime, our people are still catching hell? We need a revolution. That banner right there. We need a revolution. And if you are serious, about trying to carry forward the legacy of Malcolm X, you would be in an organization that's not just doing charity. Charity is a good thing. I'm for charity. I'm for giving money to the brother that's standing out there next to the menu board at McDonald's. But I don't just want to help the poor. I want to eliminate a system that causes poverty and causes people to be poor. We need a revolution. To make revolution, you must build revolutionary organizations. To make revolution, you must study revolutionary theory. And revolutionary theory must be wedded to revolutionary practice. That's right. I don't know how much longer I will be here, and neither do you. None of us know the day or the time. I'm not playing around with you anymore. I'm not going to talk about, let's just make this better. Let's just build a few houses here, establish a few businesses here, give out a few jobs here, when our children are filling the jails and the prisons of the United States of America. When in fact they not only imprison us, they profit from that imprisonment and grow rich off the suffering of our people in those jails. Because I know that this situation is not going to change, and I'm going to name it. It is not going to change under the capitalist system.
Not designed to.
If I was true to you, how could I stand here and say less than Dr. King and less than Malcolm X said half a century ago? If I'm not saying as much as they said, I'm not a revolutionary. I'm not helping you. Malcolm was first brought into consciousness through the Nation of Islam. In that sense, the Nation of Islam did a great service in making Malcolm X. You can't take that away from Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
Elijah Muhammad took that clay and molded it into what we knew as Malcolm X. If you had met Malcolm Little, you wouldn't want nothing to do with him. He was a pimp. He was pimping black women and white women. He was a hustler. He was a drug dealer and a drug user. The people that you are in this room now wouldn't want to have met Malcolm Little. You wanted to meet Malcolm X, Malcolm Little, after he was redeemed by Elijah Muhammad. And this much, I have to give credit to the Nation of Islam and Elijah Muhammad. But in time, Malcolm began to outgrow the ideas and the ideology of the nation. If it hadn't been the chickens coming home to roost statement, it would have been another statement. It would have happened eventually. Because Malcolm was doing what? He wasn't just building mosques. Malcolm was meeting and interacting with other revolutionaries in other countries that were making revolution against their colonial masters. He was meeting. Who do you think he was meeting with when he was invited to speak at the OAU? He was meeting with people that had made revolutions. They had made anti-colonial revolutions. They overthrew the colonial order. How did they do it? They did it by forming political parties, and those political parties formed on wings. I can't stand here and tell you anything else. I have to tell you the truth. Because you think that the redemption that we are looking for can come through this system. It can't. In this book, Malcolm said, can a chicken produce a duck egg? A chicken cannot produce a duck egg. This system cannot produce freedom, justice, and equality for anybody, black people and anybody else. It is a system based on class inequality that reproduces that class inequality from generation to generation, and more than that, increases the class inequality. The inequality is greater today than it was in 1953 when I was born. The inequality that we have now in this country is the greatest inequality in the history of the human race. Literally, a dozen men hold more wealth in this country than 150 million of the 300 million people in the United States of America. That's what exists today. And the inequality is growing. And it's going to continue to grow until there is a break. And this is my challenge to you. I challenge you. They say, well, Larry Hamm, who the hell are you to challenge me? I'm Larry Hamm and I'm challenging you. I'm challenging you. If you're really serious about Malcolm, then you got to be about the work that Malcolm was about. Let me read this quote. I lost the page. Lord have mercy. I got myself all worked up.
Thank you.
And I lost the page. Oh my goodness.
Find it.
Find it. It's the speech with Fannie Lou Hamer.
Look in the index.
Okay, here it is. I'm sorry. This is a speech that Malcolm gave at the Audubon, December 20th, 1964. Malcolm had invited Fannie Lou Hamer and the Freedom Singers to appear at the Organization of Afro-American Unity meeting at the Audubon Ballroom on the evening of December 20th, 1964. Before they took the floor, Malcolm carried out what was one of his major assignments in the organization: teaching, educating, patiently explaining things to his people in the language and style they understood. So this is a few paragraphs from that lengthy speech. Among Asian countries, whether they are communist, socialist, you don't find any capitalist countries over there too much nowadays. Almost every one of the countries that has gotten independence has devised some kind of socialistic system. And this is no accident. This is another reason why I say that you and I here in America, who are looking for a job, who are looking for better housing, looking for better education, before you start trying to be incorporated or integrated or disintegrated into this capitalistic system, you should look over there and find out what are the people who have gotten their freedom adopting to provide themselves with better housing and better education and better food and better clothing. None of them are adopting the capitalist system because they realize they can't. You can't operate a capitalistic system unless you are vulturistic. You have to have someone else's blood to suck to be a capitalist. You show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker. He cannot be anything but a bloodsucker if he's going to be a capitalist. He's got to get it from somewhere other than himself. And that's where he gets it, from somewhere or someone other than himself. So when we look at the African continent, when we look at the trouble that's going on between East and West, we find that the nations in Africa are developing socialistic systems to solve their problem. There's one thing that Martin Luther King mentioned at the Armory the other night. This is Malcolm. He just mentioned King. At the Armory the other night, which I thought was most significant. I hope he really understood what he was saying. He mentioned that while he was in some of those Scandinavian countries, he saw no poverty.
That's right.
There was no unemployment, no poverty. Everyone was getting education. Everyone had decent housing, decent whatever they needed to exist. But why did he mention those countries on his list as different? This is the richest country on earth, and there's poverty, there's bad housing, there's slum, there's inferior education, and this is the richest country on earth. Now you know, if those countries that are poor can come up with a solution to their problems so that there's no unemployment, then instead of you running downtown picketing City Hall, you should stop and find out what they do over there to solve their problems. This is why the man doesn't want you and me to look beyond Harlem or beyond the shores of America. As long as you don't know what's happening on the outside, you'll be all messed up dealing with this man on the inside. I mean that they use to solve, he said, I mean what they use to solve the problem is not capitalism. What they are using to solve their problem in Africa and Asia is not capitalism. So what you and I should do is find out what they are using to get rid of poverty and all the other negative characteristics of a rundown society. Now that's just one of the many quotes that critique this economic system that Malcolm made. And those critiques come at the end of Malcolm's life because Malcolm's consciousness was evolving. He had a certain kind of consciousness when he was in the Nation of Islam, fundamentally a black nationalist consciousness. And there's nothing wrong as far as I'm concerned with black nationalism, because I'm going to tell you, we're going to be struggling against racism under a socialist system as well as a capitalist system. Racism is not going to disappear once we change the economic system. So those people who are affected by racism, it's only natural for them to band together as any group of people facing a particular kind of oppression must do. They must band together. You don't see managers being invited to the union meeting. No, The workers come together to deal with the workers' problem. Women meet to deal with their problems. Black people have to meet to deal with their problems. So black nationalism has its place, but it also has limitations. During our struggles in the 60s, we were for black power. And in Newark, the black power movement led to the election of a black mayor and a black city council, because we used to say, the new art, what's going to happen? The land's going to change hands. We believe that simply by changing white people with black people, that would make everything all right. But our experience has shown us that that is not enough to make everything all right. Malcolm was also a Pan-Africanist. He understood that black people faced racial domination all over the world, whether they be in Africa, whether they be in Australia, whether they be in Latin America, whether they be here in the United States. So there's nothing wrong with Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is an extension of black nationalism. But we see that Pan-Africanism also has its limitations. People who are black nationalists and Pan-Africanists still have to function within the context of the imperialist system. Pan-Africanism is good, but what do we see in Africa? Just as here in the United States we saw that electing black people to be mayors and congressmen was good but insufficient, in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, just replacing the Union Jack or the French flag and the German flag with an African flag wasn't enough. What did they have to deal with in Africa? Neo-colonialism. Kwame Nkrumah, one of the fathers of modern Pan-Africanism, his next to last book was Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. So we see that black nationalism has its place, Pan-Africanism has its place, but those by themselves are insufficient. Ultimately, we have to go to the root of the problem. That's what radical means. That is the formal definition of radical, to go to the root. That's what radical means, and we have to be radical and go to the root of the economic system that in fact oppresses us at home and oppresses us abroad. And unless you're really doing that, you're really not a revolutionary. That's not to say that you're not good. It's good to do charitable things, to do good things. It's good to attend meetings. It's good to go to the PTA and to the board meeting and to the city council meeting. It's good to be part of a sorority and to be in the church. It's good to be in the church. But it's not enough. That is not going to change the system. They can play a role in the movement. And I'm convinced that we're not going to build a successful movement that doesn't have a place with the black church. That doesn't, well, look at, we've been here for how many years? We've been talking revolution for 20 years. They're like, oh, that's the people down there, let them do what they want to do. As long, there's going to be a place for Abyssinia in whatever we do. But to change society, you have to build organizations that are about that. And it's tough here in the U.S. building that. People have been trying to build it for generations. Why is it so difficult? Because this is the belly of the beast. This is the epicenter of worldwide imperialism. And worldwide, this will be the last place to fall. But it's our job to make it fall. Yes, I said fall. I want the capitalist system to fall. Yes, I said it. I say it again. I say it here. I said it at the city council. I said it at the Board of Education. Yes, I want to see capitalism fall. Yes, it's got to go. It's destroying the world. And it's destroying us. These people don't care. They just put somebody in office to undo what little environmental regulations we had. In the name of making profit, they will poison the water and poison your children. They will poison the air. They will poison the land. They will poison the food. If that's what it takes to make $1, because that's what the system is based on. And until we change that, it's not going to change. And I know by me saying that, it might break some hearts in here tonight. But I don't care. I can't lie to you. I can't. You all have helped me too much. My daughter just graduated from college, and I know that's because of the help that you all gave me. So I can't lie to the people that have helped me so much. And I know that some of you can't go down this road. I realize that. And that's not going to make you my enemy. I'm not going to talk bad about you because you don't see it my way and you can't walk this path with me. No, I'm not going to do that. But I tell you that you and I both will go to the grave and our people will be in the same bloody condition.
That's right.
That they are now, unless we change the system. I'm going to tell you something else, and I'm in with this. We may not be able to do it in our lifetime. I might leave this earth before it happens. But so did many of our ancestors. Can you imagine slaves who wanted to be free in 1620? When the first Africans got here in New Jersey, they wanted to be free. They didn't see freedom. They didn't see it. Their children didn't see it. And their children's children didn't see it. But the struggle went on anyway. We go and go, we go. Generation to generation, it's like one great relay race until we cross the finish line.
Until we cross it.
So I challenge those of you who are in here tonight. I challenge you to join organizations that are about building revolutionary organizations, building revolutionary movement, and studying revolutionary theory. This I consider to be part of the theory that we need to study. We need to study the history of the Black Liberation Movement. We can study Russia. We can study China. We can study Vietnam. But this is not Vietnam. This is not Russia. And this is not China. This is the 21st century United States with its own particular set of conditions and contradictions. And we will have to develop strategies and tactics to deal with the reality that we face in this day and time